In a world where lies simply do not exist, humanity discovers the ability to lie and uses it to their advantage to gain fame, money, and power. Hey, folks, today on the Popcorn Session channel, we'll be following the invention of lying. We start in a parallel world where the human race has never developed the ability to tell a lie. As a result, people say exactly what they think. And as you can imagine, this leads to several awkward situations, such as that lady they're saying another woman's baby looks like a rat. Then we move on to the screenwriter Mark Belly's son, who is knocking on the door of a girl named Anna whom he's about to take out to dinner. However, she answers the door and immediately tells Mark that he's ugly and not excited about going out with him. Just as we've seen, people in this world say exactly what they think. So, the guy sits on the couch to wait for Anna to finish getting dressed, and she mentions that she's only going out with him because she's afraid of ending up alone. Mark, on the other hand, says he made a reservation at a cheap restaurant because he's low on money. After that, Anna finishes getting ready. The guy confesses that he wants me to meet him in bed. But the woman says she didn't find him attractive. However, the guy doesn't seem to mind too much. After all, everyone is super honest in this world. And he must have surely heard the same thing many times before. Then they arrive at the restaurant and the waitress says she feels inferior because Anna is much prettier than she is. So, the two sit at the table and the waiter comes to serve them, revealing that he's embarrassed to work at this place and that Anna is too beautiful to be dating a guy like Mark. After the waiter leaves, they finally have some privacy. He asks her about her life, and Anna explains that she's an executive and that she lives in a luxury apartment, buys expensive clothes because she earns a great salary. Then her mother calls to check on how the date is going, and Anna describes Mark right in front of him as a chubby guy with a toad-like face. Later, the date comes to an end and the guy takes Anna to her building. She confesses that she had more fun than expected and gives him a kiss on the cheek. In the evening, Mark lies down to watch television before going to sleep, and a very honest Coca-Cola commercial appears where the host says that sodas can cause obesity. The next day, Mark is on his way to work and sees a Pepsi advertisement on a bus that says people only buy Pepsi when there's no Coca-Cola left in the market. After that, he arrives at the company where he works, which is essentially writing scripts to create documentaries about historical events. However, these documentaries are quite boring, as you can probably tell from the visitors' expressions. The guy leading the tour then states that Mark is the worst scriptwriter in the company and that he will be fired soon. Following that, he has a brief conversation with a secretary named Shelley who informs him that their boss, Anthony, will be arriving shortly to fire him. So, Mark asks her to take down his messages, but Shelley says it would be a waste of time since he'll be let go soon. After that, Mark is in his office and Anthony arrives, explaining that the last two scripts he wrote are depressing and generated very little viewership. As a result, Anthony finally fires Mark. To make matters worse, Mark also receives an email from Anna stating that she's no longer interested in him because he earns little and is not attractive. As a result, the guy packs his things in a cardboard box and gets ready to leave. However, Red Kassler, who is one of the best scriptwriters in the company, shows up to humiliate Mark, saying that he's a failure. However, Brad admits that he always felt threatened by his presence because he knew deep down the guy had something more. Later, Mark goes to a nursing home and the receptionist is brutally honest, just like everyone in this world. She asks if he came to abandon an elderly person, but he explains that he has already done that and that he's there to visit his mother, Marta. Consequently, Mark arrives in his mother's room and confides in her, telling her that he lost his job and is a 40-year-old bachelor. Because of this, Marta tries to comfort her son and tells him that she loves him and that things could be much worse. The next day, the building landlord knocks on the guy's door to collect the rent. So Mark explains that he lost his job and only has $300 in his account while the rent costs $800. However, the landlord has no ounce of empathy and explains that Mark has one day to remove his belongings from the apartment. As a result, Mark goes to the bank to withdraw all the money he has in his account for the move. However, the bank teller informs him that the bank's system is down and asks how much money he has in his account to process the transaction later. But Mark is embarrassed to tell the truth and something inside his brain awakens. So he learns to lie and says he has $800 in his account, which is the exact same amount as the rent. Right at that moment, the system comes back online and the teller realizes that Mark only has $300 in his account. However, this is the first lie told in this world, so she believes Mark and thinks there was just an error that reduced the amount of money he has. Therefore, the teller hands over the $800 and Mark leaves the bank with a smile on his face. This way, he discovers that he can lie to get what he wants and pays the rent to the landlord. The next day, Mark is talking to his friend Greg in a bar and tries to explain what a lie is. However, he can't describe it in words because something like that didn't exist in their world until now. So Mark tries to give a practical example and lies to the bartender that his name is Duel. However, both the bartender and his friend Greg, who already knows him, believe it, and Mark becomes frustrated for not being able to explain to them what a lie is. And so Mark decides to push it further and claims he has dark skin, is a pirate, and also a lion tamer. Surprisingly, Greg and the bartender believe everything as if it were true. Therefore, Mark gives up on trying to teach them what a lie is and asks what they would do if they had the power to do anything in the world. In response, they both say they would pick up many women, and Mark gets the idea to do the same using lies. Mark leaves the bar and encounters an attractive lady. However, right away, she rejects him and says she would never be with someone like him. But Mark is clever and lies that the world is about to end in a few minutes if they don't relax. The woman turns with a frightened face and asks if there's time to go to a motel or if they can do it in the middle of the street. So Mark takes the woman to a cheap motel and she starts undressing desperately because she thinks the world is ending. However, he asks for her name and suggests that they talk a bit to get to know each other better before going to bed. But the woman insists that they lie down together right away. Mark lies again, saying he received a call from NASA informing him that the world won't be destroyed. As a result, the woman celebrates with happiness and Mark leaves her alone in the motel room. After that, the guy returns to the bar and asks his friend Greg to drive him to a casino. However, Greg is drunk and they are pulled over by a police officer who administers a breathalyzer test to Greg, realizing he's intoxicated. Consequently, the police officer removes Greg from the car and prepares to handcuff him. However, Mark lies and says that his friend didn't drink and didn't even have a single drop of alcohol. The police officer believes the lie and releases both of them. Mark takes the wheel to avoid further trouble and eventually they arrive at the casino. The cashier warns them that there's a high chance they'll lose money at the casino, but the guy has lies on his side, so he buys some chips without a care. Next, Mark bets all his chips on the number 28 in the roulette game. However, the ball ends up landing on number 35. Still, Mark points in a different direction, claiming he saw something unusual and everyone looks over there. He then moves his chips to number 35 to lie about winning the round. In the next trick, he calls the casino manager and lies that he won the jackpot on the slot machine, but the machine malfunctioned at that very moment and didn't pay out his winnings. Therefore, the manager believes the lie and Mark fills his pockets with the jackpot. After that, the guy returns to the building where he lives and has a brief conversation with his neighbor Frank, who confesses that he tried to end his life the previous night. Mark convinces Frank not to try it again by saying that he will soon meet a nice girl who will make him happy. Frank feels better and Mark realizes that lying can also be used for good. Therefore, he takes a homeless person to the bank to help them get money from the teller for free. Next, Mark whispers some words into the ears of a couple who were arguing and instantly they make amends and hug each other. After that, he visits the nursing home where his mother lives and tells various lies to the elderly people who are feeling down to make them happy. In the evening, Mark returns to his apartment and calls Anna to ask her out, but she declines the invitation and prepares to hang up on him. However, Mark explains that he has changed a lot since their last meeting and convinces Anna to give him another chance. What's even better is that Mark didn't lie to manipulate her, showing that he genuinely cares for Anna and wants her to feel genuine feelings for him as well. After that, the guy turns on the television and sees a presenter from Palestra Filmes talking about Brad Kessler being the best scriptwriter of this generation. Mark then grabs a pen and paper and starts forging a document from the 14th century to try to deceive the people at Palestra Filmes. He even dips the papers in coffee to make them appear old. The next day, Mark returns to the company's office to show the forged document to his former boss, Anthony. He starts reading the papers and lies that everything in it actually happened in the 14th century, claiming that he found these documents in a chest buried in the desert. However, the bizarre story he invents includes aliens, ninjas, and robotic dinosaurs. A few minutes later, we see Mark reading the fake document to several people working in the company, and everyone is amazed by the story and believes everything in it. Mark has them convinced by inventing that people's memories were erased in the 14th century to make them forget that all of this ever happened. As a result, Mark is applauded and Anthony gives him permission to create a script for a documentary about this story. Moving on to the evening, Mark takes Anna out to dinner at a nice restaurant and they start talking. He tells her that his father turned to a life of crime after becoming addicted to alcohol. Anna asks about his mother and he explains that she lives in a nursing home but that he plans to buy a house for her to get her out of there. Unexpectedly, Mark receives a call from the hospital informing him that his mother had a heart attack. He rushes there and the doctor explains in a rather harsh manner that his mother will likely pass away today. Then the two are alone in the room and Martha starts crying, expressing her fear of dying because she believes there's no life after death. Martha's condition worsens and the nurses report that her heartbeat is diminishing. In response, Mark uses his ability to tell lies to convince his mother that the afterlife is a wonderful place where she will become young again and be able to visit her favorite places and reunite with her loved ones who have passed away. Martha dies with a smile on her face, leaving Mark devastated. However, the doctor and the nurses overheard everything and were impressed by Mark's fabricated account of the afterlife. Next, Anna feels sorry for Mark and sleeps beside him on the couch to help him through this difficult time. The following day, Mark is returning to his apartment and is surprised to find dozens of reporters and people in front of his building. He gets out of his car and they surround him, bombarding him with questions about the afterlife. Mark becomes extremely famous, appearing on multiple TV channels, becoming a sort of religious leader, and people even camp in front of his building. However, Mark despises the attention and even considers moving to a more secluded place. But Anna talks to him and convinces him to handle the situation differently. Consequently, he spends the entire night writing and creates a set of commandments in a pizza box to answer people's questions about the afterlife. Following that, Mark stands face to face with the crowd and reads what's in the pizza box, even lying that there's a luxurious mansion waiting for each of them in heaven. Besides that, Mark explains that God is responsible for everything that happens in the world and tries to persuade people to do what is right. He says that only those who have committed no more than 3 crimes will go to heaven. Mark's presentation concludes and we see that it was being broadcast worldwide. Several months later, Mark finally completes the script for that bizarre documentary, and when it's released in theaters, it becomes a huge success, breaking box office records. Moreover, Mark buys a luxurious house and he and Anna grow closer but remain friends. One day, Mark is with Anna in the park and tries to teach her not to judge people by their appearance, as everyone does in the super honest world. Then he asks Anna what she thinks of him and she responds that Mark is the kindest and most interesting person she has ever met. There's a moment of chemistry between them and they nearly kiss, but Anna changes her mind and says she can't be with Mark because their children would be born chubby with potato-like noses due to his genetics. So, Mark considers lying and telling Anna that their children will be slim with normal noses, but he refrains from doing so because he loves her and doesn't want to deceive her. Therefore, Anna seeks out men who are more physically attractive and arranges a date with Brad Kessler, who happens to be Mark's #1 rival. However, in their conversation, Brad lies to Anna, telling her that it's forbidden for her to relax before marriage and not to sleep with Brad on their first date. Afterward, they go out for dinner, and Brad acts like a complete jerk, choosing a salad for Anna to eat because he doesn't want her to gain weight. Furthermore, Brad reveals that he's dating her just to get back at Mark because Mark is more successful than he is. However, Anna accepts all of this in silence because she wants to have beautiful children who won't be judged by their appearance. However, her mistake is not thinking that these children will be born with a jerk of a father who will likely mistreat them. The next day, Mark walks the streets and sees that he hasn't been able to change much in the world and people continue to act like idiots toward each other. Not even a beautiful mansion and a stuffed bank account make Mark happy because what he most wanted to achieve in life was Anna, who is now with Brad. Several months later, Anna visits Mark and is surprised to see that he has a long beard and a mane of hair. She reveals that she's been busy working for the past few months and hands Mark an invitation to her wedding with Brad. Mark asks her why she wants to marry an arrogant guy, and Anna explains that she's getting older and less attractive, so she needed to marry a good-looking guy quickly to have the children she has always dreamed of. Mark tells her that to him she will always be beautiful and bids her farewell, wishing her happiness. She becomes emotional and leaves with her head down. Later, Anna is in the park and sees an overweight boy eating ice cream. However, some bullies approach and insult the boy because of his weight, smearing his shirt with ice cream. Anna becomes furious and confronts the bullies, then she compliments the boy's smile to explain that he is beautiful despite being chubby. The next day, the wedding day arrives and Mark is feeling quite disheartened considering not going. However, Greg convinces him otherwise, saying that he can still be with Anna. Greg provides Mark with a suit to wear and a razor to shave off his beard. Afterward, Mark arrives at the church and protests when the priest asks if anyone objects to the marriage. He explains that Brad will be a terrible father because he's arrogant and good genetics won't ensure the children's happiness. However, the priest insists that they should obey God's will and everyone in the church urges Mark to ask God to tell them who would be a better husband for Anna. Nevertheless, Mark refuses to do so and decides to leave the decision in Anna's hands. He exits the church without knowing the answer, but Anna follows him and questions why Mark didn't ask God. He reveals that he has no connection with God and manages to explain to her what a lie is. Thus, Anna asks why he didn't lie to marry her and Mark tells her that he didn't because he wanted to do right by her. Finally, she realizes that he will be a better father than Brad and they end up together. In the end, a few years pass and we see that Mark and Anna have married and had a son. The boy tastes the burnt food that Anna made and lies, saying that it's good, showing that he inherited the ability to lie from his father.